Have you ever heard of a battle where the deadliest enemy wasn't the opposing army, but nature itself? Imagine 1,000 soldiers, armed and battle-hardened, vanishing overnight in a swamp. This isn't a horror movie plot. It's a real, terrifying event from World War II. The Battle of Ramree Island. The year is 1945. The war in the Pacific is raging. On a remote island off the coast of Burma, now Myanmar, British forces have cornered a regiment of about 1,000 Imperial Japanese soldiers, cut off and outmaneuvered. The Japanese commander is given a choice: surrender or face annihilation. His decision would lead his men not into the hands of the enemy, but into a living nightmare. Refusing to surrender, the soldiers made a desperate choice. They would escape through the one route the British had, uncompletely sealed off, a 10-mile stretch of dense, unforgiving mangrove swamp. To them, it must have seemed like their only chance at survival, a path to regroup and fight another day. They plunged into the thick, dark vegetation, disappearing from the British lines of sight. But what they didn't know was that they weren't just entering a swamp. They were walking into the world's largest reptiles hunting ground. The mangrove swamp on Ramree Island was, and still is, teeming with saltwater crocodiles. These are not your average crocs. We're talking about prehistoric killing machines. Some growing over 20 feet long and weighing more than a ton. They are apex predators, perfectly adapted to their environment, powerful, stealthy, and brutally efficient. And the Japanese soldiers had just walked right into their territory. As night fell, the real horror began. The British soldiers positioned on the swamp's perimeter could only listen. What they heard was the stuff of nightmares. The darkness was pierced by terrified screams, the crack of sporadic rifle fire, and a sound they would never forget. It was a churning, splashing chaos that echoed through the trees. British naturalist Bruce Wright, who was with the troops that night, described it as a cacophony of hell. He wrote about the scattered rifle shots in the pitch-black swamp, drowned by the screams of wounded men, crushed in the jaws of huge reptiles, and the blurred, whirring sound of spinning crocodiles making a din of hell that has rarely been duplicated on Earth. Imagine the sheer terror. You're a soldier, stuck waist-deep in thick, warm mud that feels like it's trying to swallow you whole. It's pitch black. You can't see your hand in front of your face. The air is thick with the smell of decay and salt water. You're exhausted, wounded, and disoriented. Your rifle, your best friend in any other fight, is almost useless. How do you shoot something you can't see, lurking beneath the murky water? Every ripple in the water becomes a source of pure dread. Is it a friend struggling nearby, or is it one of them? A flash of movement, a powerful splash, and the man next to you is gone, dragged under without a sound. Then the screaming starts, punctuated by the horrifying sound of a crocodile's death roll, the spinning motion they use to dismember their prey. The psychological toll must have been unimaginable. These were disciplined soldiers, trained to fight other men. But here, they were no longer the hunters. They had been demoted on the food chain. They were prey, trapped in a primordial maze with an enemy that had been perfecting the art of the ambush for millions of years. The swamp itself was an enemy, the mud immobilizing them, the tangled roots tripping them, the darkness blinding them. The ordeal lasted through the night, a long, dark, horrific night. When the sun finally rose, the swamp fell silent. The British cautiously advanced, expecting to find the remnants of the Japanese regiment. Instead, they found a scene of carnage unlike any they had ever witnessed. The swamp was littered with scraps of uniforms, discarded equipment, and the gruesome remains of the night's slaughter. Of the roughly 1,000 soldiers who had entered the swamp the evening before, only about 20 were found alive. They were dehydrated, wounded, and in a state of profound shock, babbling about the reptilian monsters that had haunted their night. Nearly 1,000 men had been consumed by the swamp and its inhabitants. This event is so extreme that it holds a Guinness World Record for the greatest disaster suffered from animals. While some historians have questioned the exact number of casualties attributed directly to crocodiles, suggesting that disease, dehydration, and skirmishes also took a toll, the eyewitness accounts from the British soldiers paint a consistent and terrifying picture. Even if the numbers are half of what's reported, it's still one of the most horrifying mass casualty events involving wildlife ever recorded. The Battle of Ramree Island serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying threats aren't human. It's a story of how a desperate gamble for survival turned into a descent into a natural hell, where trained warriors became helpless victims of nature's ancient and brutal power. It shows that, in the wrong place, at the wrong time, we are not always at the top of the food chain. So the next time you hear a strange sound in the dark, just be glad you're not in the swamps of Ramree Island. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as fascinating and terrifying as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the darker side of history. See you next time.